And welcome to another episode of 50 Shades in Grey, where today I am joined by Nina Tara. And Nina Tara is an art psychotherapist. Nina, thank you so much for joining the show and welcome.
You're very welcome. I'm really glad to be here.
So, Nina, obviously, with art psychotherapists, I don't know anything about this area, but I'm really interested to learn.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it's therapy by art. Is that
Yeah, it's quite a unique way of doing things because we're kind of reaching into the more subconscious part of our thinking because we can get quite analytical, we can get quite left brain, we can get quite trapped into a narrative or replaying something. But when we're using the arts, whether it's art or music or movement, because I do, I vary it, we can actually reach another layer that's underneath, and then we kind of shift into the right brain. So we're offering ourselves possibilities as well as acknowledging the fact that something traumatic has happened. We're also allowing that sensation, that movement, that feeling to move through the body, because we forget that it's not just you know um, you know experience that's happening up here, but it's also happening in your body. So we kind of do it, we call it the bottom up. It's a bottom up process. So feeling it before we can process it.
so? Obviously, on this show, we deal a lot in relationships and dating, and you mentioned trauma there. So, does that come under the umbrella of sort of coming out of relationships, or maybe losing someone from a relationship and getting themselves in a position to move forward?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like trauma, people think trauma needs to be something really big, something really impactful. And actually, divorce or separation or bereavement, whatever it is big. Because when you
Mm.
think about it, you spent your a length of time in a role, and then you're not in that role anymore, and then you're kind of realigning yourself. You're trying to redefine yourself. You're trying to find yourself. So I think it's quite tricky. I don't think it's not for me to judge whether it's traumatic for anyone. I think the individual knows from where what they're going through and what they're experiencing. The level of trauma that they're feeling.
I wonder if, and you mentioned divorce there, if people,
Mm.
because that's a very stressful time for people, obviously going through that, and especially if they've got kids and everything else that goes with divorce.
Mm.
Is Do you think people don't associate stress and trauma together, but they're in fact part of the same package?
Yeah, I don't think anything exists in isolation. We don't exist in isolation. We're such layered individuals, aren't we? I mean, divorce, moving house, and bereavement, I think, are the three main stresses that you can go through. Um, and divorce on its own, it's like rewriting your entire life. And a lot of the both male and females that I know, may be getting divorced after being in a marriage after 20, 30 years. And then you're kind of trying to find out where you fit in the world. You're trying to
Yes.
find out where you fit in your world. And I think sometimes people rush into seeking companionship or partnerships, but actually, it's probably the most sort of vital time to kind of pause and then do some self inquiry. Because something, about attachment styles, we look at our own attachment style. Am I anxious? Am I avoidant? And then kind of do that inner work so that when you do finally come back out into the dating scene, whatever that looks like for anyone, um, you can come at it differently.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that lots of people, when they come out of a relationship, they think that what they need to do is replace the relationship. Where
Mm.
I think a lot of the times, over the period of time they've been in that relationship, they've not lost their self, but forgot their self because they're with someone else as well. So I think finding yourself again is quite an important process before you then meet other people.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, my story myself, I was in a 32-year-old marriage, and then there was divorce. And I did have that moment when you go, oh, Christ, maybe I should just try and get back with him. And I had to ask myself the question, is it what am I missing? Am I missing the things that he offered me, or am I missing having somebody that was helping out around the house? I had to get really sort of sharp with myself. And when I kind of loosened that a little bit, unraveled that a little bit, and it was like, actually, it just means that I have to step up my game a little bit more, and
So
actually challenging myself meant I can do it.
so how did the art therapy was this something that you've always done, or was that a result of the experience that you've had coming out?
No, no, it was it's really funny. No, the art therapy happened as an experience of losing my mum. She had dementia and she had renal failure, and I went through this whole process of my own personal development and grief. And I think the other thing about divorce is we need to kind of allow grief to exist in that space. Um, and so when I was going through that, I kind of got a little bit disenfranchised with my own work. I was working for very many years as a graphic designer. And so I went through my therapy and the bereavement therapy. And the therapist actually said to me at one point, I don't think this is about your mum. I think this is about your marriage. And so,
Wow.
yeah. And so I went through the training. I retrained at a much later time in life. And part of that training meant that we had to be in our own personal therapy. And it was the first time I'd been in art therapy because I thought, well, actually, if I'm going to train as an art therapist, I want to know what that feels like to participate in it.
Yeah.
And over the course of those years, things started to unravel, and I started to understand actually the things that I was accepting were because I had grown up that way. I grew up with, with that behavior that was narcissistic. So I didn't know that what I was receiving in my marriage was any different.
Mm.
And so the art psychotherapy actually helped me look at my own behavior patterns and my own needs and and that kind of unraveled a lot for me. So I think it probably helped me see more of myself in the relationship. And then when you bring that into a relationship, obviously what I would say, if you can work together, if both partners are kind of in agreement, go to therapy, try and make it work. But it wasn't working in this instance. So yeah, I made the big decision. I
So
left.
obviously there's lots of different types of therapy now, and
Mm,
I think it's from sort of my era. It was something that was very much looked at as upon, well, you must be quite weak if you're going to therapy. You shouldn't
mm,
need therapy. Whereas now, I think it's welcomed a lot more
mm.
because it's about talking. But obviously, so how do people sort of think, right? I'm going to do art therapy as opposed to maybe going speaking to a therapist. How do they arrive at that, and how do they arrive at you?
Is it all right to swear?
Of course you can. I did choose not to because of my job.
Okay. Well, I think basically my understanding of it personally, I can only speak from my own personal viewpoint and some things that I've heard from clients is when you get fed up with your own bullshit, you literally get fed up with your own bullshit and you're like, I really need to sort this out. I really need to sort this. And so then you dive in. I often say to people like, come on, let's roll up your sleeves. Let's dig deep. And that's really what therapy is about. It's not about fixing anyone. It's not about fixing the other person. It's about let's dive deep. Let's ask those curious questions. Let's look at your childhood. Let's look at the things that you grew up with that made you believe that this is all that you can have. The micro experiences that ended up being so macro that you live like that now, you know?
So, so in terms of sort of, so how I would interpret it, if I was thinking, right, I'm going to do therapy, I need to speak to someone. I need to take some therapy. If I looked at art therapy, and I thought, do people sort of look at it and go, well, I'm crap at drawing, so that's no good to me. So how do they arrive at art therapy, though? How do people go, "Well, I'm not very good at painting, and I'm not." Is it something
Uh,
that's recommended to them, or is it something that they just think, "Well, I like a bit of art, so I'll go along and do that"?
yeah, it's a mixture, I think. I think a lot of the adults that I work with have found me through Instagram, or they found me through the other platforms, other websites. But it's interesting that you're talking about art because, like, if we step back to being into secondary school, that's probably where we start losing interest in art because we're where it's taught in school, so it's like a competition, and it has to have a narrative, and it has to have an aim. And also in secondary school, we don't make so much art as we did when we were in primary school. So it kind of gets drummed out of us at an early age. So when somebody comes to me, I do invite them to be more curious with the materials. Um, and often we'll be speaking, we'll be talking while they're making. And sometimes I will make alongside someone. And if somebody's having a really, really tough time, I will make for them. We'll be talking and I'll make.
So that was going to be my next question is
Hmm.
what does a session look like? Is it in a group environment or is it in one-to-one or just depends on the situation?
Yeah, I think it can be anything. A lot of the people I work with, it's individual. I have done group works, but group work is very different because,
Mhm.
group work is like family. It's like a family system. So people will be supporting each other as well. But on one to one, it's just me and the client and the art.
So what does that look like? So if I came in, um, and I said, "Hi Neil, I'm Elliot. It's the first time I've been here." You know, do we get pens? How does it work? Do you get pens and paper
Yeah.
out straight away and just say,
Well,
"Draw me
well,
something," or
no, not at all. No, not at all. It's a collaboration. It's a co-created space. Usually it's an assessment. We'll have an assessment where somebody gets a chance to kind of say, this is what I'm going through. This is what I want to work on. Actually, I don't even know what I want to work on, but this is what I'm experiencing and I need some space to have an outlet. And so we'll have an assessment. And then the next time we see each other, either if they're seeing me in person or they're seeing me online, I'll encourage them to have certain materials. It might just be pen, paper, it might be felt tips. And we generally start with a doodle game. It's a something that was created by Winnicott. A squiggle game. So I'll invite people to, squiggle all over the page and then color in because actually what I'm encouraging people to do is create a shelf for themselves. And it's so much you know you can reach different depths when you're creating because you're using both sides of your brain. You're using your right
uh
side and your left side, and that can open up different curious spaces because often myself when I've been in my own art therapy, I'll be overthinking something and then I'll be making something and then it'll be like, oh, that's the solution, right? But I've been missing is somewhere in between, and I've been fighting this side, and I've been fighting with that side, and it's in the middle, you know?
So do you ever look at the work yourself and sort of try to process what you think the other person is going through in order to help them? Are there common things that people will actually draw or shapes that they will draw that sort of would suggest that a certain trauma that's going on in their life then?
Well, it doesn't really it's not indicative of the trauma. It's kind of, helps us to see the places that they're stuck in. For instance, it can be as simple as we do have a reflection period at the end, because it's nice to be able to bring the art in and make space for that as well. Um, and often, we'll turn it around and see it from all angles. And then often it'll be, oh my God, when you were talking about that, that kind of reminds me of like the fact that you've got 3 or 4 shapes there. And it kind of makes me think about the people that you were talking about and who is that? How big are they? How small are they? So we kind of give it space in the room like that. And it offers up a lot of conversation. It offers up a lot of reflective spaces.
Excuse me. And do you find now it's interesting that you say that you do this online as well. Do you find like with the introduction of that medium, especially since sort of the COVID days, a
Mm.
lot more is done online. Do you think people feel a lot safer doing things online, or do you find that it's a different experience when you're one to one with them?
It's an entirely different experience one-to-one. In the studio, it's completely different because you can, also think about energy. You're picking up of somebody's energy, and I think it's really interesting because when COVID happened and we had to all go online, and some of the, trainings that we'd be in, there'd be young, newly qualified therapists with their own therapists, and we're all in the same training because it leveled the playing field, and we all had to
Yeah.
learn, a new tool. Um, but obviously being in person is very different because you're noticing the little nuances. And having done some training now, I have to be extra sharp because you can't see how my legs are moving. You can't see if I'm like bouncing my leg around, where I can see that in the room and I'll know that somebody's feeling quite overwhelmed. So working online, it means that I have to kind of be extra noticing the things like breathing or eye movement, or even just a conversation where it will stop all of a sudden. So being able to pick up on something like that, to be able to say to somebody, "Hey, what happened? Where did you go? Did you want to share?" So I think being in person is obviously very different, but I think the thing about it being online is it gives people more access because not everybody can travel to where I am, and I can
Exactly.
be
Yeah.
seen because I've got clients in Europe. I had clients in the US. So it just meant that it makes it more accessible.
Yeah. I think that that for me, I think I don't know if there'd be a degree of feeling safer if I was online almost because you're in your own home. So you feel like you're not leaving home to go somewhere. So I think it might feel sort of a bit more impersonal in a personal way, if you understand what I mean, where
Yeah,
you
yeah.
feel safe.
Yeah, absolutely, and then there's something there to work on, isn't there? What makes it feel so safe for you that you have to stay in your environment, that you feel a bit more seen if you're with me? If you're in this environment, you'll feel more seen. So there's something else to explore because I've had that too, where clients have wanted to be online and then eventually we've come in person. And then on occasions we have to be online and they'll be like, "No, actually, I really prefer being in person."
So is the art side of the therapy a tool that goes alongside of them actually talking through their issues and their problems with you as well? So it almost sets them free a little bit from overthinking what they're
Mm,
saying because they're the other side of their brain is concentrating on what they're doing on the paper or making,
yeah,
I should say.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it really does free up an unconscious process. I mean, in my own therapy, I remember once working with my therapist and I was using clay and I was talking about something really, really tricky. And this was when the whole situation around my marriage was unraveling for me. And I remember making this piece and suddenly became aware of what I made. And then I dropped it on the floor. And it was like, it just unlocked something for me. So it can be, and also it's not just about the making of the piece. Sometimes it's about the movement of the piece. Sometimes it's the way we're breathing. And the other thing it is coming from the left to the right brain. We're also looking for regulation because when we're talking about something highly charged, we're going to be really overstimulated. We're going to be really charged. So we also need to kind of think about the nervous system and how to be able to create, a space of calm so we can breathe a little easier so that we can access some of this information.
And also with we obviously the other side of my job is education as well. I'm in education. I'm a teacher, so seen through, and I'm at primary level, and I see a lot of the children coming through now, and there's been a big change in children, and a lot of our followers on the show are in that stage of midlife where they've all got young children.
Mm.
And are you seeing, because there's a lot more awareness about autism and all different spectrums now, are you seeing that your client base has become a lot younger and involving children with this method of therapy?
No, I have worked with really young children, but I kind of moved away from that, and I work with more teenage years and adults. But I think what's interesting about the younger children is that they're so open to creativity. they're so open to kind of being able to explore through movement, through dance, through play. You know, I've worked with little children where we're playing hide and seek under tables and things like that. And then I've worked with teenagers where we've sat under the table because they're feeling so overwhelmed. I've worked with adults where we've sat on the floor. So I think, um, you know, linking it back to what you were saying about people being divorced and things and neurodiversity, I think all of this was already there. I think we've just become more aware of it because we have
Yeah,
access to the internet. And a lot of the children I see self-diagnose. I don't always think that's a good idea, but at the same time, there's comfort in knowing, oh, that's how my brain's working.
yeah,
Okay, that makes sense. I'm not, you know, um, because I think it's really hard in schools. You just sharing your a teacher is that, you know, if a child is dysregulated and being, you know, behavior in the classroom and they're tapping on the table or they'll throw stuff. A lot of the times when I've seen children like that is because they're either autistic or ADHD, and actually they're geniuses. And what you're teaching them is low level for them, and they need some more
yeah,
stimulation because,
stimulus,
you know,
yeah,
um, and so we kind of work on actually how do we bring you back into a space, and then I work within in the school to say, okay, we need to support this child in this way, or maybe we need a space where if the child becomes like this, then they can leave the room and they can go and access the inclusion room, or they can, you know, whatever room there is, so they can come down and then reintegrate into the classroom. So, and this is what I mean about we're so layered, but
yes.
we're asking children to fit into these really narrow little boxes. Where actually, if we expanded those boxes a little bit and involved or included some of this stimulation and movement, you don't know where we'd be, you know?
It's really interesting actually from what you were saying earlier on, because it is when we're young, we spend a lot of our time with sort of colouring pencils, pens
Mm.
and felt tip pens and drawing, and then you carry on into secondary school if you take art, but then when you get to sort of adulthood, unless you're in a profession that actually does drawing, not many people draw anymore, do they? So do you find a lot of the adults that you have in your therapy sessions do say, "I used to love drawing when I was a kid, and I don't know why I stopped."
It's quite interesting actually, because one of the things I was going to say is we make the assumption that every single child has access to art materials at home. That isn't true. They do have access perhaps at school. Um, And then over time, a teacher might have said, "Oh, no, do it like this," or "No, that's no good. Rub that out." And then, you know, you kind of feel really shit about what you're doing because it's like, well, this was supposed to be good. I was, you know, and so I don't know many adults that have said, "I used to be really good." I know a lot of adults that have said, "I really struggled at school because it was never good enough."
Yeah.
You know,
I think it's marked a lot. I think it's got a lot better now, I've got to say. I think that was sort of when I was at school, it was like that. Because I always
yeah.
remember I'd always do nice pictures in pencil and then ruin them because I had to colour them in or paint them. And it was like, "That was really good. Why did you make me paint it? It's just rubbish now."
We'll have to have a session, Elliot, because I actually encourage people to make something, then we scrunch it up, and then we unravel it, and then we scrunch it up again. So there is nothing, you know, there's nothing that's not perfect, you know? I think it's all a matter of kind of the way you perceive it.
So, you know, just to finish up on, if for the people that are watching out there, if they are going through some sort of trauma, how would you like signpost them towards doing art therapy and coming to see you? You know, what would you say to them?
Uh, They can find me on the website. It's www.courageousart.co.uk. I hope I've said that right. My tongue got twisted
I'll
then.
take everything in anyway, Dina, don't
Thank
worry.
you. You can find me on Instagram too as courageous_art_therapy. You basically need to just Google Nina Tara and I'll probably pop up somewhere being mischievous. But, you know, also there's the BAT website, BAAT, and there's also the BAANT website. I'm also on there. Um, so yeah, there's loads of places you can find me.
So, but for someone that's like sitting there watching this and thinking, well, I'm going through some stuff. Is that for me? And I know there's not a checklist of sort of like, well, if you're not
Mm.
sleeping, you should be coming, and if you're, overthinking. But what would you say to people, like, for people if they're thinking about therapy, that it may, this would probably be good for you? Are there sort of signposts for them that they could think, well, actually, that may be for me?
Well, first and foremost, I'd say that if you are struggling with sleep or eating or anything, that looks like depression, definitely go to your GP, because I think that that'll be your first stop to be able to get some
Mm,
immediate support. And also reach out to friends, family, because I think sometimes, and I'm talking personally now. I remember when I went through all of this, my world shrunk. I
yeah,
just shrunk my world down into a tiny little bubble, and only a few people had access to that. I was very fortunate that the people that had access to that were also, the ones that I needed at that time. So that's the first thing I would say, is reach out to your closest connections, because you'll be surprised at how many people um, do understand. And if you really feel like, okay, I'm ready, I want to go and explore. I think you'll know. You'll know.
yeah.
You'll have the agency. You'll have that. Well, that drive, because I think when you first are going through divorce, and whether you're the one that's instigated it or whether your partner has said to you they don't want to be with you anymore, they want a divorce, you have to also allow for grief.
Yeah.
Grief has to exist, because you're the loss of your world, as you said, many people have been married for years, and then your world turns upside down, and it's about reorientating yourself. It's about finding your feet again. And once you've found your feet, and then you're like, okay, ready, I'm ready to explore, then yeah.
Then it's time to maybe look for
Yeah.
some help and
Yeah,
a
yeah,
different medium to that. Well, Nina,
yeah,
listen, thank you so much for your time and thank you for coming on. Guys, you can find Nina. I'll put all Nina's links in on all the posts and at the end of the podcast as well. And if that's something that you feel that you could use, obviously reach out to Nina.
yeah.
Um, and she'll be there for you. Nina, thank you so much for coming on Fifty
Thank you,
Shades
Elliot, for
and
asking me. I
Grey.
really enjoyed it. Thank
Oh,
you.
it was lovely. Guys, make sure you subscribe, make sure you follow, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye bye. Right, stay there, Nick.